是我一抵达机场啊，他们就非常热烈的欢迎我，让我感到非常的惊喜跟感动。
Al venir a Corea sabía que era totalmente tradicional, pero al llegar aquí, esto es súper moderno, esto es el futuro, está lleno de tecnología por todos lados, la gente es súper amable, una locura.
The convention center was really amazing, and those holograms? Unbelievable.
So excited because I was a Korean princess.
Including 300 here in Hong Kong.
Another 3 contracted the virus while visiting family hours and
I loved everything about Korea. The food was so good. Oh, I miss it so much.
Oh, j'ai vraiment envie de retourner en Corée. Mais la prochaine fois, j'emmènerai mon ami qui n'y est jamais allé et qui a vraiment hâte de découvrir tout ce qui s'y trouve.
You
are joining us at the Korea Mice Expo 2020, and today we are hosting the third session of the conference. I am the MC for this event, Lee Joo-hee. It is a pleasure to be here. The conference will be broadcasted live through our website and YouTube, so you can watch this session once again through our website. The conference is being held for 2 days. It started yesterday under the topic of prospects for the mice industry in the post-COVID-19 era. In the previous section, we talked about how global businesses are opening up new possibilities by applying IT technologies for meetings and events. And in the third session, we will be talking about mice resilience and cooperation. And we'll be talking about the overall future of the mice industry. I would like to invite the moderator for the third session, Professor Kim Chulwon of Kyung-jin University Convention Management Department. He is the president of the Knowledge Management Society of Korea. He also served as a Korea Tourism Organization's Inter-Korean Tourism Advisory Board member. He also served as a dean of Kyung-jin University College of Hotel and Tourism Management and the Graduate School of Tourism. We will begin session 3 with Professor Kim Chulwon serving as a moderator. Please greet him with a big hand. Yes, good afternoon. As was introduced, I'm Chulwon of Kyung-jin University. Now, every year I have participated in the Korea Mice Expo, and I was able to meet with the many different stakeholders to talk about the future of mice and also to think about the solutions for further advancing the mice industry. Currently, we are faced with the COVID-19 and I think that this is the first time that we are holding this type of hybrid event, online and offline, with wearing our masks. We were supposed to host this event in June, then it was pushed back to November. Despite the difficulties, however, I think that the COVID-19 pandemic has also opened up new possibilities for us. Now, in the past, we had held events within a limited venue, but now we are able to host this event without the limitation of time or space. It is a ubiquitous event, so I think that we have been able to identify some new possibilities. In the third session, we will be talking about the resilience and cooperation of mice. And under this perspective, we'll be talking about how the mice industry and the tourism industry, despite being hard hit by the pandemic, can overcome the current challenges. Many stakeholders are faced with difficulties, but I do believe that we can join our wisdom to find solutions to overcome these challenges. We have 4 speakers for the session, and we will also hold a panel discussion. So we'll be looking into how we can really promote the resilience of mice and also cooperate together. The first presentation will be a presentation of an overseas experience. Our first speaker is the head of global business events of VisitBritain and Visit England, Ms. Kerrin MacPhie, and she will be talking about the actual cases of the UK. So let us listen to the presentation by Ms. Kerrin MacPhie.
Hello, my name's Kerrin MacPhie, and I'm head of global business events for Visit Britain and Visit England. And I'm delighted to talk to you today about mice resilience and cooperation from a UK perspective. I'm going to cover strategy, activity, support and opportunity in this presentation. So what is the UK's strategy for business events? Events are worth some £70 billion to the UK economy each year. Business events is worth £31.2 billion alone, and the trade transacted at events is worth some £165 billion, a significant value to the UK economy. The UK wants to be the leading destination in Europe by 2025, and how will we do that? We'll grow value of the business events that we attract through economic impact, knowledge share, legacy and trade and investment. We'll improve productivity through business events. Business events are an all year round opportunity, and we want to attract those events every month of the year. We'll enable dispersal, ensuring that business event buyers understand what the opportunity is across the destinations in the UK. There is so much choice. And we'll be the expert body. We have so many great key sectors that we're world leading in, and these will help to attract business events to the UK in the future. Business visits are worth some £4.5 billion each year to the UK. There are some 8.4 million visits each year from business travellers. South Korea visitors to the UK in 2019 was some 301,000, and of those 10% were specifically for business visits. We want to attract more business visits from South Korea. Visit Britain have held an office in Seoul since 2019, May 2019, which is in the embassy. And we want to work with local business buyers, planners of events, so that we can grow the number of events and the number of visitors to the UK in the future. The UK's industrial strategy to boost productivity and key sectors focuses on 10 key sectors as part of that strategy. However, the Department for International Trade has 20 sectors that it focuses on to develop the UK economy. But looking specifically at those 10 key sectors for growth in the UK in the future, you can see that tourism forms one of those 10 sectors. Tourism is seen as a vital component for success in the future from UK government. UK government have also pulled out 4 grand challenges. These grand challenges are focusing on global trends to transform our future. And these are in artificial intelligence and data, future of mobility, clean growth, and the ageing society. Included in the UK's industrial strategy is the first international business events action plan. And in that action plan, it plans out what we will do as a sector to develop in the years to come. We're focusing on winning, retaining, creating and growing events for the UK. Looking at brand and activity, we play a unique role in building England's tourism product and raising the UK's profile worldwide. We do that through 2 key campaigns. Events Are Great, which is one of the pillars in the many pillars that form the Great campaign, which was created in the run-up to the Olympics, which took place in London in 2012. We also use Meet England, which is under the Visit England banner. And Meet England is used at activations such as trade shows, where we promote everything great about England. One event I want to pull out specifically is Meet GB. Meet GB is an event which we promote under the Events Are Great campaign. However, the event itself hosts Meet England Activity 2. You can see bottom right on the slide a booth as part of a virtual event. This virtual event took place because COVID back in March closed all our opportunity to host live events. So we decided to take our own event. We own this event, Meet GB. We took it virtual. So we created a virtual platform. We invited many buyers who would have attended the live event and suppliers who would have attended the live event. And we created what we feel was the first event platform with great success. Event support is very important when bidding for and winning events. And we have the Business Events Growth Programme, a government-supported, financially supported programme. And this works in 3 ways. One, where we help destinations or organisations bid for events for the future. Another way is where we will help to grow already existing events that have been won for the UK, to grow that to an international audience, and through advocacy support, through our MPs and government, letters of support, videos, attendance at events, welcomes, many ways of supporting events. And you can see here our Minister for DCMS, Nigel Huddleston. He is one of the many ministers who would support events into the UK. Challenges, opportunities and campaigns. We've had a busy time since April, since lockdown began. So before we look to the future, I would just like to take us back a little while to April. April, when the UK events industry stopped. Many destinations stopped holding meetings, but in April, we closed our meetings. But we didn't stop. We continued to engage with the industry, both the buyer and the supplier side to let the world know that we were there, we were with them, we were stronger together, and we were going to work through this. So we created a campaign that was significant in terms of views and engagement, 158,000 contacts we reached and 33,000 video views. We also ensured that the Business Events Growth Programme was open during this time. Although people couldn't meet, meetings could still be planned for years into the future, and this programme was there to help support the destinations across the UK to bid for events for the future. We created Meet GB Virtual in a very, very short time because we knew that although we couldn't meet in person, there was still real value in meeting on a virtual level and having those real live discussions. We created We're Good to Go, which was an industry mark that supported guidelines needed to be COVID safe. More about that in a moment. And we used our various platforms to engage with industry across the world. We also created virtual discoveries on our eventsaregreat.com website. These discoveries bring you to the UK. They give you experiences in walks, in food, in beverage, and they're really informative and bring a real smile to your face, so please take a look at those. We're Good to Go is the official UK mark that shows that hospitality businesses are adhering to government and industry guidelines for COVID, ensuring social distancing and cleanliness is maintained at every step of the way. Some 35,000 businesses are signed up to this mark and 40,000 have applied, so this number will continue, I'm sure, in the weeks and months to come. 157 destinations support this and their members behind them. This is a mark that shows real unity but also gives real confidence to the buyer community that we are good to go when it's safe to meet again. This mark includes all of the segments of the tourism industry, business events, caravan and camping, bed and breakfast, the list goes on. It's an overarching mark that really means something in the industry. We can't meet again for the moment. We will be able to meet again in the future, but it may not be how we've met in the past. Our new campaign, Events Reimagined, gets industry to think about how meetings can take place, again, in the same destinations, but in a different way. So Events Reimagined gets buyers to think about how they can reboot their events, how they can refresh their events, and how they can reimagine their events in the UK. The UK cares. The UK is here. And the UK is ready, so that when industry is ready, we'll be able to host many of their events in the future. And we so look forward to it. I will now answer some questions that have been posed to me. Thank you. Here's a short video that I hope you will enjoy, and it will give you that feeling that events can be reimagined in the UK.
예, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Ms. MacPhie. We did hear a very impactful presentation. We use the word MICE quite often, but in Singapore, Australia, and in the UK, the word business event is used. And so from the perspective of business events, we have heard a great presentation. And from the presentation, she talked about reboot, refresh, and reimagine. She talked about this campaign, and we were able to see how the UK is working on creating a brand for the UK as a business event destination. As we were listening to her presentation, we have received questions.
I have three questions for you. Actually, before COVID-19, the success factor of a business event as a MICE industry to attract the business event, actually attracting more people at the destination. Having said that, there have so many difficulty, hardship at this moment due to COVID-19. What do you think is a new normal and a critical factor of business events with the corona or post-corona? What do you think about that?
The success factors for meetings and events taking place in our new world during this time of COVID will be through a virtual platform complemented by a hybrid solution. So what we will find as we move out of COVID is that we'll find hybrid meetings, small live meetings taking place in regions around the world, and they will be complemented by many, many delegates who will attend virtually. What we've found through events that have taken place is that there is a much larger audience virtually than there would have been at the live event. So this creates real opportunity, both in terms of data collection for that event organizer, but also in terms of delegate attendance in the future when events do come back to live in-person events. So there is a real opportunity for engagement so that there is the link maintained for the future when events can return.
Okay, thank you very much for your answering further. It's a very interesting questions. But second question will be very similar questions with your answer. Actually, United Kingdom has been a major destination for business events. Other European countries are also, but as I mentioned, that we are facing really difficulty and hardship to host in our own face destination. So anyway, it's a technology, a digital technology is a very critical factor to host business events. What is your new possibility, new challenge and opportunity for United Kingdom to make your destination as a competitive?
Visit Britain is seeing the virtual world as an opportunity to continue to engage with the buyer community. In April, Meet GB Virtual was launched and it took place in June. And in a few months' time, we will host another virtual event for England. We are engaging through virtual roundtables, peer-to-peer meetings, destination showcases. So we are absolutely using the virtual platforms that exist to reach out and maintain those really deep, long relationships with our clients so that when the time's right, they know that we're there for them.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, I have another question. As you mentioned, the British government launched a new global travel task force with various stakeholders such as local government and private sectors. Could you introduce us what kind of public-private partnership do you have to promote a safe and sustainable tourism or business event after COVID-19?
The Global Travel Task Force is a group consisting of cross-government departments, public and private sector. And they'll be looking at ways for travellers to travel safely internationally into and out of the UK. They'll also look at ways of creating confidence and reduce the barriers to a safe and sustainable recovery of international travel.
Okay, thank you very much. 하여튼 캐린 맥핀 씨께서 이 마이스 산업이 회복력을 가지고
So Ms. MacPhie talked about how the MICE industry could recover its resilience through branding and campaigns as well as public-private partnership. Well, how well is this applicable to the Korean situation? And so, having listened to our UK story, we would now like to listen to the story of Korea. The first presentation will be by Professor Lee Eun-sung, who is the president of the Korea MICE Tourism Society and teaching at Dongdeok Women's University. Received the doctorate degree in 2004 at Kyung-hee University and is very active for the development of the MICE industry. Professor Lee Eun-sung has always focused on going back to the basics. And we look forward to Professor Lee's presentation. Without further ado, please invite Professor Lee with a big round of applause. Good afternoon. As have been introduced, I am Lee Eun-sung. It is indeed a great honor for me to present at this conference. What I would like to talk to you about today is on the resilience and recovery of the MICE industry. The MICE industry has been impacted severely by COVID-19. How will we recover our industry, and what new forms of cooperation can we create? Well, I would like to provide you with some food for thought in going back to the fundamentals. And so, the title of my presentation is Going Back to the Basics for the MICE Industry. So, in order for the MICE industry to recover and cooperate again, what do we need to do? Recently, there was a survey in COEX, and this was a survey of 107 MICE event hosts. And so the first question is, how will events play out after COVID-19? 40% said online and 25% will be in hybrid formats. So many people predict that in some ways they will be online platforms. And we have also seen a decrease in the event budgets. Because it's not a physical conference, many of the clients seem to think that the budget should be decreased. And many of the events this year were either cancelled, downsized, or delayed. And what about the future? What do people predict about the future? Many people believe that events will be in the form of hybrid. 67% answered that they expect hybrid conferences, 24% expected virtual conferences, only 8.5% predicted that they will be offline conferences. We will have to give this more thought. And in conducting online conferences, what were the expectations about the budget? Many people believe that there will be a slight increase related to online conferences, and many people also believe that events will be downsized. That is the Korean situation. Let's take a look at a survey titled North Star's Pulse Survey. Many people do surveys these days. And so this is just one example of a survey, a recent survey, in fact. For the first quarter of 2021, people expected that small-scale events may recover. And in the second half of 2021, large-scale events and conferences may recover. And even after COVID-19, 41% expected that events will be downsized. And concerning hybrid events and online events, almost everyone answered that events in the future will be either online or hybrid. So over 80% believed that conferences will be online or hybrid. So in conclusion, events will become smaller, 50% or less. And so that will be the general downsizing of events. And because the sizes are smaller, it's easier to do online, and the smaller events will disappear. But what about events that need motivation or networking? The larger events that need networking may expand in the future. So you can see that there is some confusion about forecast about the future of international conferences. Other people believe that there will be localization of events. So people will not be traveling long distances. So people will only participate in the local conferences or at least in the region and not travel globally. So there will not be conferences or events that travel around the world, but rather within the local area or the region. Even now, today, we have a hybrid conference, and we see that a hybrid conference is becoming a trend very quickly. A lot of the data is coming onto the online platform, leading to quite a lot of benefits. For example, you don't need to physically participate, and so more people are participating in conferences. That is becoming quite active. And meeting technologies are becoming more and more important. PCOs and other service providers, their roles will continue to change in the future. The fourth is selective participation. So it means that people will ask for the value of their participation, whether in terms of brand or unique venue or culture. When MICE events were held, it was most about sharing knowledge and information, but people will look for the plus alpha in participating in events added to the knowledge and information. But nevertheless, there are still high expectations for face-to-face meetings. Many people value face-to-face meetings even now. Here you can see a survey conducted by Trade Show Logic, and you can see that most respondents believed that after the COVID-19 situation settles down, face-to-face meetings will recover. According to the Growth Lab of the Center for International Development at Harvard University, business events have close correlations with economic growth. So the more number of people travel for business, the higher the level of innovation, economic growth, and the growth of venture startups. And they believe that it cannot be substituted by online meetings. For example, if none of the Germans go on business travel, then the GDP will decrease by 2.48%. So face-to-face meetings are still very important. And so therefore, I would now like to talk about how we can go back to the basics in terms of the industry, PCOs, and venues. Well, first of all, MICE plays various roles, and there are many advantages and also weaknesses. But above all, international events become the key to leveraging the advantages of the local area. So it can act as a testbed. It can also become a platform to gather together experts, investors, and capital. It can also be a venue for sharing knowledge and information. And so therefore, the MICE industry can play a pivotal role in upgrading the competitiveness of the city and also expanding their brand power so that we can strive for the sustainable growth of the city. And so therefore, one of the biggest marketing tools for a city would be the MICE industry itself. Let's take a look at the example of Sydney, whether it be innovation, regional growth, regional development, and cooperation. The role of the MICE industry is very high for these key components. And whether it be work or study or living, the MICE industry is very important. And it seems that 7% of the people who work and study in Sydney actually want to become a part of this industry.
So this is a quote by the Business Events Sydney president. He says that we're not in the tourism business, but we're in the innovation business. So in other words, it promotes the local economy, and also that can lead to the promotion of the tourism industry and other industries as well. That's how the MICE industry is defined. For example, Las Vegas, we can see exactly that happening. Well, Las Vegas, in the beginning, Las Vegas was very famous for casinos and leisure activities, entertainment, but casino had its limits, and so by attracting the MICE business, Las Vegas was able to generate more profits, and this vitalized the local economy. And now it's looking beyond that. Las Vegas is looking for the next step. For example, autonomous vehicle testbed is a role that Las Vegas is thinking about, and also through that, for example, Las Vegas is thinking of collecting the technology and having it being integrated in its city. So MICE industry can play this kind of a role to have spillover effects to other industries. Another example is the Mittelstand in Germany. Mittelstand means the very strong SMEs. So these are medium-sized companies but have very strong technology. And these companies gather together for exhibitions and meetings in locations where the major industries are developed so that the local economy can be promoted. So, for example, in Stuttgart, MedTech is very famous, and Berlin, IFA is very advanced. So, not just because we were hit by COVID-19, but MICE industry really has to think about the next step going forward and what it should concentrate on in the future. So, in Korea as well, hosting a lot of conferences and events, that should not be everything about the MICE industry. We have to think about how we can gather together the different stakeholders, to think about how we can work together to promote trade and the economy and other industries as well, and think about what would be the main industries that can drive the growth and how collaboration can take place. And MICE can play the role of a catalyst to make this happen. So, in Korea recently, the Korean New Deal plan was announced, and many different industries under the New Deal plan was announced for development in the future. And we do believe that also MICE industry can be further advanced under this Korean New Deal plan. So we looked at the MICE industry, and now I would like to take a look at the PCOs. PCOs plays a very important role in the MICE industry, and I do believe that PCOs will continue to transform themselves. So I think that it is meaningful to take a look at the concept of PCO. Overseas, PCOs not only do planning and preparations and execution, but also it takes on a more proactive role. For example, not only planning, but communication, coordination. PCOs plays many diverse roles, whereas in Korea, the PCOs are known to carry out or perform various projects for international events. So it's more of a passive role that the PCOs take on in Korea. But we need to have the PCOs play a more proactive role. They should not just only be engaged in the preparation stage or the execution, but also they can take on a new role of a creator of these events. So as I mentioned before, the local main competitive products and businesses can be promoted through the events and also by the PCOs. So we should foster these professional PCOs and also we can also have the startups also grow along with the PCOs and the MICE industry. So the startups, they can start off with a small-size MICE event, but they can grow into the PCOs who can take on the mid-size MICE events, and they can contribute to widening, expanding the ecosystem. So in terms of the ROE of the events, well, learning, motivation, and networking. These are very important three key words of the MICE industry. Learning, we can do this in the hybrid manner or the online platform. However, when it comes to networking or motivation, it has to take on a new approach. We need new creativity for this. So meeting technology, I believe, can play a very important role, and in the future it will play a very important role. But I think that content development is very important, and so the PCOs can take on the role of creating the contents in the future. Number 3, we have to think about the venue as well. Now, as you can see in the case of the UK, for example, and other cases, well, we have been focusing the venues centered around the convention centers, for example. And there are many objectives for establishing these convention centers, but in fact, these convention centers were established to serve as centers for cultural and community activities as well. But in reality, convention centers have not been widely utilized for that purpose. So in the future, the convention centers should be promoted as a venue that can partner with the local communities. This is a good example. The Massachusetts Convention Center in 2007 already, the local artists were invited to exhibit their work at the MCCA, and so there was a community art program that was exhibited at the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority, the MCCA, since 2007. So you can see how the convention centers can work with the local communities and the people. And I think that this is something that we should also look into. This is something that we should further study and try to utilize and promote. And another example is the Melbourne Convention Center, MCEC. It was utilized as a location for filming the movie Blacklight, and this led to the creation of more than 500 local jobs. And also in Korea as well, we can see a lot of hybrid and online events taking place, and the convention center has been utilized as a hybrid and online event venue. Now, the president of the MCEC said that we can play an important role in the nation's economic recovery by bringing back jobs to the city and using our space in a new way to support the wider community. So having said that, I think that these convention centers and the existing venues can be used in a new way, working with the local communities to promote the local economy. I think that we are at a stage to think about these types of new approaches. So last but not least, unique venue is a topic that I would like to touch upon. I talked about the 4 major trends, the size becoming smaller, and also I talked about the unique venues and selective participation. And for selective participation, unique venues are very important. Unique venues are not just simply the places where the events are held, but it is where the characteristics of the local areas can be introduced. And for example, in Japan, these unique venues can promote the local characteristics of Japan, and so these unique venues are more supported in countries such as Japan. And so these unique venues, I think, is something that we have to further promote in the post-COVID-19 era. I've gone on and on. And I've given you a lot of information, but I think that these are really food for thought for us to deeply think about in the future. And I do hope that we will be able to discuss these aspects in depth later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Professor Eun-sung, for your presentation. He is currently the president of the Korea MICE Tourism Society. So going back to the fundamentals was the key point of his presentation, especially for the fact that there will be more active regional MICE events. There will be more participants through the virtual platforms. And we will also see changes in the role of the service providers because of COVID-19. So going back to the fundamentals will be not about just simply branding or marketing, but we will need to go back to the basics of the MICE industry. We need to overcome the difficulties of COVID-19, and in a post-COVID-19 era, we need to become content creators. And it should also become a platform to market the major industries of the local areas. And the role of the venue concerning the culture and other contents that can be added can then create unique venues. So we have heard from Professor Lee, but there are still many things that we need to think about. Hybrid conventions, they make us even more nervous to be on stage because it doesn't really feel like we are communicating. Our next presenter will be Mr. Jun-Hong. Although in Korea we did not have a lockdown, the MICE industries need to be hosted in limited space, and so disease control and other measures have limited the hosting of MICE events. So from the venue perspective, many people are making great efforts to overcome these limitations. Today we have with us our presenter who will talk to us about how to overcome the difficulties of local MICE events. We have with us Mr. Jun-Hong. He is a team leader at the Incheon Tourism Organization. A big round of applause, please. Mr. Min is a part of the Incheon Tourism Organization, and he's working on non-face-to-face smart technologies to establish hybrid conferences. He will present under the title of Meet Again in a New World. Good afternoon. As have been introduced, I am working at the Incheon Tourism Organization, specifically working at the Songdo Convensia facility. Today, I would like to talk to you about some disease control measures at Songdo Convensia. I am sure that you have seen the temperature checking machines and the hand sanitizers. We know that many people would like to have events non-face-to-face, and so we have introduced smart MICE technologies to enhance them into non-face-to-face event technologies. And we also thought about how we can host virtual conferences. How can we essentially have a virtual Songdo Conventia? I would like to cover our disease control efforts as well as the direction for convention venues like ourselves in the future. Because of COVID-19, our lives have been shaken from its roots. When the first confirmed case was reported in January, we thought that in just 2 to 3 months it would disappear like MERS did a few years ago. However, we can see that in August we had the second wave of infections, and now we are experiencing the third wave. I don't believe that we will ever be able to go back to things were before COVID-19. Some people believe that COVID-19 will continue until the end of next year, and some people express this as the Third World War. So COVID-19 has impacted our everyday lives. It has impacted the way we work, the way we socialize, and the way we meet. For the way we work, many people are working from home. Well, we thought that for public institutions, it would be difficult to work from home, but it seems that work from home is being accelerated. Currently, 1/3 of our manpower is working from home. Some people thought maybe working from home would not work so well, but when we actually tried it, it proved to be very effective. We also utilize virtual meeting platforms, and as you can see in the graph, business-related apps have been downloaded more and more after COVID-19. The way we socialize is also changing. In the past, we would talk about how about an office dinner today, but it seems that office dinners have almost disappeared. And so people would enjoy a drink alone at home. In the past, people would visit the movie theater, but I think for myself, I've only visited the movie theater once this year. Many people would utilize platforms like Netflix, and people would also have virtual travels. The way we meet has also changed. It has impacted the MICE industry. The MICE industry was essentially a way for people to meet face-to-face. But the way we meet has changed, and so we would have non-face-to-face or virtual conferences. The KME hosted today is also a non-face-to-face conference. Business travels overseas is almost non-existent, and as you have seen from the UK example, many people are working from home and they are participating in conferences from home. This actually triggered a crisis in the MICE industry. If we take a look at the first half of 2020, over 70% of the exhibitions were cancelled out of the total of 200. This was a crisis for the MICE industry, but in August we have seen that there was a second wave of infections and more than 50 people could not meet, and now we see the third wave, and currently you can only have one person for every 4 square meters. And so the MICE industry did face a crisis all throughout this year. In order to overcome the crisis of the MICE industry, the Incheon Convention Bureau also worked on creating ways to overcome these difficulties. And we actually supported disease control measure budgets, for example, 400,000 won per event per meeting room. At the convention center, what are some of our disease control measures? Please take a look at this video. This video was the video for the Design Living Fair hosted here this year. As you have seen in the video, many convention venues these days are not talking about how they are great as a convention venue, but they're talking about their disease control measures. Let me take this opportunity to introduce a few of our measures. everyone who is coming into the venue must wear a mask. This was a measure that we mandated for all visitors even before the national mandate. As you can see, we made sure that the entrance and the exit are separated. We also have machines to check the temperature so that we can check the temperature of everyone coming into the venue, and anyone who is above the temperature of 37.5 degrees Celsius is not allowed in. We also have plasma air shower machines so that when people go through these machines, the viruses could be cleaned off. And as you're well aware, we also have a e-visitor list for each of the meeting rooms and convention halls. And as you're stepping into the venues, we always made sure that people could keep their distance. And once you're inside the venue, we would check the temperature once again. And as I mentioned before, only one person is allowed per 4 square meters. Our exhibition hall is about 4,000 square meters, and so only 1,000 people were allowed in at once. Once you're in the venue, you had to sanitize your hand and put on gloves. And inside the hall, we also had medical personnel standing and waiting for any contingencies and emergencies. We also created bigger distances between booths so that we would not have people close together. And we continued to announce through the speakers that you need to keep your mask on at all times. So as you can see, we continue to do these disease control measures, and non-face-to-face technologies became more and more important. Ever since 4 years ago, we have had government support financially to conduct development in smart mice technologies. Smart mice technologies enabled effective operation of on-site events, but now these technologies are pivoting to virtual conferences, and they are being expanded to utilize for virtual conferences. And so in the past, we simply used apps, but now these apps have been expanded for pre-registration. As you saw on your way in, we also have robots that have disease control measure functions that have been added. Let me go into some details. As I have mentioned before, the apps that we had in the past have been expanded as a pre-registration platform. So if you have pre-registered before coming to the venue, you can use this QR code that has been created to step into the venue right away. And at Songdo Convensia, we have 174 IoT sensors. And so everyone coming into the venue, their smartphones have been scanned by our IoT mobile scanners so that we can see your movements within the venue. And once you're inside the halls or meeting rooms, you would check in again so that all visitors at Songdo Convensia could be double-checked. And based on the information that we collect from our scanners, we would have all of that information on the dashboard. In the past, the dashboard was mostly for checking humidity or the air quality, but now we also check for any traffic of people, and so you can see the parts marked in yellow are the areas where many people are gathered, and if more people gather there, then it is marked in red, and we utilize this dashboard to scatter people to make sure social distancing is possible. These robots in the past were used for information, but now they can also be used to scan temperatures, and so they are now used for disease control measures. Just outside this conference hall, you have probably seen the robot on your way in as well. If your temperature is above 37.5 degrees Celsius, or if you're not wearing a mask, the robots would scan you and screen you. We call this robot Romy Q. Q stands for quarantine. Romy Q, I hope you will be working hard. Well, Romy Q is not answering because Romy Q is working too hard to answer. We also have digital signage all throughout Convensia. In the past, digital signage was used for promotional videos, but now we are giving information about social distancing measures. And if you are not participating in person, you can also have a VR experience of our facilities. For our tables or chairs, we can also show you a VR layout. For example, if you are wondering what it would look like to have 2,000 seats with tables, you are able to check that using the VR layout. We also have IoT scanners that have been installed at airports, and so we are able to see the flow of people. We used to manually count the people who come to our venues, but because we have the IoT mobile scanners, we are able to check the number of people, and it seems that about 120% of the people come from the surrounding areas. For example, we can also have information about whether people who come to Convensia actually utilize the facilities in the surrounding areas, therefore contributing to the local economy. COVID-19 has changed the way we conduct exhibitions. In the past, before January, when we say we have an exhibition, it was given that they were offline exhibitions. But with COVID-19, we started to see that we have more hybrid exhibitions, both online and offline. And with the increase of confirmed cases, for example, the Korea Police World Expo 2020 was an online-only expo. We have also seen changes in conventions. In January, we had the incentive tour of a Chinese group, and it was an offline-only event. But in August, an event by the Korea Economic Society actually had a hybrid convention with 50 people participating online and the rest of the people participating offline. The Korea MICE Expo 2020 we thought could be a hybrid event just last week, but we switched that to an online-only event because of the level 2 measures that kicked in yesterday. So you can see that these changes have translated into changes in the convention centers themselves. In the past, convention centers were where people meet and share information. So that was the role of the past. But in the future, the role of convention centers will change. It will be to connect people so that they can share information. So the role of the convention centers themselves will change. And because the role of convention centers are translating to connect and share, we are preparing for this change. First, in our boardroom located in room 301, we have created a web conference room to enable virtual conferences. We are currently establishing this room, and we are also working on building a virtual studio. If we complete our virtual studio, then you will be able to have the cameraman working with the visual effects so that we could have an AR conference in real time. And for Korean speakers who are not able to participate in international conferences abroad, they can film themselves here and have a real-time participation for a hybrid conference. And hybrid conferences can be held at Songdo Convensia so that we can expand the broadband here to 10 megabps rather than the 1 megabps that we have currently. Songdo Convensia wishes to take this a step further. We wish to become a virtual conference platform. We want to create a virtual Songdo Convensia so that we can have an actual virtual conference. So you would be able to come in to the virtual Songdo Convensia and have a virtual participation at a virtual conference. So as you can see, ideally, exhibitions could be held at real conventions. We believe that it's ideal to have the real exhibition at the real Songdo Conventia. But given the current situation, we believe that we can also have virtual conferences at the virtual Songdo Conventia. And we believe that the hybrid Songdo Conventia is the only way for survival in the COVID-19 era and beyond. So whether it be the real Songdo Conventia or the virtual Songdo Conventia, we will do our best to meet again in a new world. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Min. Thank you for your presentation on Meet Again in a New World. Yesterday, we had key sessions on meeting technologies. Mr. Min, having heard his presentation, this is what I thought about. When you go to restaurants or subway, it doesn't look like they're doing any disease control measures, but it seems that at Songdo Conventia, there are great disease control measures, and it seems that people don't really know about this. So maybe you can promote what you are doing. And I think even if you have hundreds of people here, it would not matter because your measures are in place. So I think it would be great if you could promote your efforts to the disease control authorities.
Now it is time to listen to a presentation on the topic of unique venues by CEO Kyung-jin of Floating Island. Floating Island is known for its unique structure and function, and it has contributed to the Korean MICE industry as a unique venue. So she will be talking about how Floating Island is responding to COVID-19 and also its plans to further grow through cooperation with the government and industries. The title of her presentation is Unique Venues Marketing Strategy. So please greet her with a big hand. Yes, good afternoon. My name is Kyung-jin. I am with Floating Island. And today I would like to talk about how, in an unprecedented era of COVID-19, how unique venues can grow, survive, and win. Let's first take a look at the definition of unique venues, and then we'll go on to think about how, in the era of COVID-19 and post-COVID-19, what kind of marketing strategies we need, because I do believe that we need a change in our marketing strategies. And then having said that, I'll look into how we shall respond. First, unique venue. You probably know well. It means a venue that is unexpected or unusual. So if you look at the encyclopedia definition, it's a word that combines unique and venue. So a place that is set in places that has unique characteristics. And unique venues, as the interest in MICE industries went up, also the venues have been also a focus of interest. And unique venues actually can provide the visitors with a glimpse of the unique characteristics of a region, for example. And now, not just simple conference centers, for example, people want to have a plus alpha. And at the same time, people want greater accessibility. So in the past, event planners would utilize hotels or convention centers. But now, because there is competition, the hosts, they are looking for more unique and different venues. So I do believe that the growth potential of unique venues are quite large and that unique venues will continue to grow. So if you look at the characteristics of unique venues, you can summarize them in the following three. First of all, these unique venues can leave a lasting impression. People can easily remember them because they have unique attractiveness. And so unique venues leave a lasting impression, a lasting memory on the participants. And also there's a high possibility that the participants would want to share photos of the unique venues, leading to natural promotion and advertisement of these venues. And number two, these places are customizable. The customers can customize these venues so that they meet their needs. And especially if the venues are quite different, then you can apply creative ideas to actually maximize the effect of the events that the customers want. Number three, people want to attend places that is different. There is a higher possibility that people will attend the event as the venue is unique and different because people want to go and experience that. So if the people had spent the entire day in meeting rooms, then for the dinner, perhaps you might want to change the setting, change the venue. And so through such new venues, unique venues can actually help participants relax and revitalize the event. So in this era of COVID-19, then what kind of marketing strategy does unique venues need? What is needed for unique venues to adopt to this current new era or new normal? Well, first of all, I think that we are in an era where psychological stability and mental health is very important. So we are living in a non-face-to-face era. We have to accept this and we have to try to ease the stress and find mental health and psychological stability. People did not know that the COVID-19 situation will continue on for so long. So people are just waiting for the pandemic to end. But now it is time for us to really look at the reality and now predict the future. And because of COVID-19, unique venues in particular are experiencing changes in the reservations, for example, or changes in their relationship with clients. So venues are also feeling stress. But you have to actively react to the changes and minimize the stress and try to minimize the economic impact as well. And also, you have to ensure that the staff who are talented do not leave your organizations because of stress. So you have to help your staff also to find a peace of mind. Number two, I think that the MICE industry is at a standstill overall. And at such a time, it is important that you improve customer loyalty by developing various programs. Unique venues can help your businesses grow in a stable manner. And the best way to do that and enhance profitability is to improve your loyal customer base. So you have to predict profitability and also create new demands and also to conduct activities to enjoy stable growth. And in order for all of this to happen, you need more loyal customers. For example, if you're able to retain your customers by 5%, the profit can increase from 25% to 125% according to a recent study. And also, a similar situation such as COVID-19 can emerge in the future as well. So for that, you have to be prepared, and thus you have to have a loyal customer base. So for that, you need to have a customer-first policy, you have to strengthen online communications and marketing, and you have to provide incentives. In terms of the customers first policy, you have to have a trust-based relationship with your customers, and for that you have to place the needs of the customers first. And also, even if you have to stop your business activities, you should continue with your online communications, and you should utilize social media channels and email marketing so that you can closely communicate with your customers and you are not forgotten by your customers. So that when we overcome COVID-19, you can normalize your business as soon as possible. You can minimize your economic damages and generate profit. And also, I mentioned that you have to provide incentives. After COVID-19, once the customers believe that it's safe to do business, then they will start to host events. So, what the venues have to recognize is that just like customers, the venues also have been impacted by COVID-19 psychologically and also economically. And so they also want to be compensated. After COVID-19 has been overcome, we have to provide incentives so that we can attract the customers who also want to be compensated. And also, nowadays, we are seeing new programs being implemented in the post-COVID-19 era. I do believe that we will see more hybrid events that combines online and offline platforms. So we have to take the time to prepare for this kind of change. Number one, you have to be prepared for virtual conferences. You have to have the software, you have to strengthen your AV systems, and at the same time, well, I know that already a lot of people are telecommuting, they're working at home, out of the office space, so you have to strengthen such systems for telecommuting and promote such systems. And also, you have to adopt automation to your paper and document management. And also, you have to secure more space for your cloud storage. And also, to prepare for events such as COVID-19, you will have to strengthen your automation electronic systems so that you are prepared for future uncertainties. And also, in terms of financial management, unique venues have to be prepared. In the future, I do believe that large-size events with many participants will not be held in the near future, or the number will be reduced for some time. So you have to look at your marketing strategies, whether your strategies are right for such upcoming changes. And also, when the economy is not good or if there is a lot of uncertainties, many people do not pay attention to marketing. And people tend to think that events are for later, when everything is stabilized. But actually, marketing's effect can be maximized in times of uncertainty. So you have to keep that in mind. So unique venues and also businesses in the MICE industries have been suffering because of contracts. For example, cancellations. You have to ensure that you have very clear provisions. For example, you have to have provisions to prepare for natural disasters or unexpected events or force majeure. So you have to be prepared for unexpected, unpredicted events. We hear that vaccines are being developed, but we do not have high expectations that COVID-19 will be entirely overcome by early next year. So we really have to strengthen our fundamentals. And for that, perhaps we might want to meet with consultants, financial advisors, or data analysts, or marketers, or accountants or lawyers to ensure that your businesses is on the right track and are in a stable position. It is good for you to do this kind of a review of your company status. And also digital transformation. Well, based on the know-how and experience of MICE businesses, each venues probably have their own expertise, and you should combine your expertise as a venue with digital transformation technologies so that you can have higher competitiveness. So it might seem like a far away time, but actually we have to be prepared for the post-COVID-19 era. And in such an era, because we have already experienced the risk of this pandemic, I think that everyone will have changed, including the customers. So you have to be able to reflect the evolving needs of the customers. After the pandemic has been overcome, then if you are in a position to adopt to the evolving needs of the customers, and that is when your business will be able to grow and fare well. The customers, they want to have an independent space where outside members cannot come into their event venues. And also, the industry people believe that we cannot go back to how it was in the past. So I do believe that social distancing will also be important in the future, even in the post-COVID-19 era. And not only that, safe and hygiene-related standards will be quite different from what we have today. Customers, they will want to be protected from diseases and other unsafe, hazardous conditions. So I think that the standards for safety and hygiene will become more stringent. So venues will have to keep this in mind and change accordingly. That is how venues will be able to refresh themselves and reboot themselves. So this is a photo of the convention centers. As you can see, in the past we utilized 500 seats, but now we have 150 seats. I think that it will be difficult to go back to the past because social distancing is continuing. So we have to implement measures to prepare ourselves for such circumstances. As you can see, in the past there were more than 100 seats, but now there are only 15 seats, and this will be a norm in the near future. Also, in the post-COVID-19 era, we will not be able to satisfy customers with the current venue, so we have to continue to upgrade our venues. And also, when compared to other venues, we have to make sure that we have differentiated contents. So the venues that have competitiveness will be the only ones that can survive. High technology will have to be adopted and implemented, and these types of venues will be the only ones that survive. Not only 3D, but also mapping technology, 4D, and holograms. These various technologies are already available. It has become available to us this year. So these technologies should be reviewed, and each venue should adopt the technologies that meet their needs so that they can further make their venues more unique. And I mentioned that the participants' number will go down. This will have a negative impact on the profitability. This is an unavoidable reality. So we have to, as venues, come up with countermeasures. We have to think about how we can secure potential for growth in the future. So we have to think about small luxury. Even though the participants' number is small, we can perhaps go towards luxury. And so rooms that used to be simple seminar rooms perhaps can become a luxury venue with these flower decorations. And in the past, unique venues or convention centers actually provided a quote based on the per capita price, but we will have to think about a new method of calculating the quotation and think about how we can maximize our profit. And also, outdoor events are on the rise. This was a launching event for iPhone. iPhone is known for innovation, and this was also an outdoor event. So you can see here that we utilize bicycles, and the participants, they had lunch boxes prepared for them. And the reason for the outdoor events is because it's good for ventilation. And even if there is a certain number of people, the risks go down because it's outdoors and you can ventilate better. So I think that there are a lot of businesses who are interested in these types of outdoor events. And also for company meetings as well. Many companies are turning their eyes towards outdoor events. So here we can think about two things. Number one, people are concerned about being trapped in a closed indoor setting. But actually, there is a limitation to the number of people who can participate in these indoor events. If you take the events outdoors, actually, you can actually ease these concerns because you're in an open space, and that is why a lot of people are actually wanting more outdoor events. And I think that this kind of trend will continue in the post-COVID-19 era. Once again, this is a fan meeting event. In the past, most of the fan meetings took place indoors. But today, as you can see, the fans, well, actually, we want the fans to freely roam around. So we have the photo zones, and we have these signages and objets. So this is actually preparations that suited the COVID-19 situation. So I do believe that going into the future, we'll see these kinds of changes continuously being implemented. Venues have to change as well. I talked about small luxury venues. This is a kids' party that took place outdoors. And as you can see in the photo, actually, the scale is quite large because the host actually rented out a swimming pool facility, but the participants, actually, their numbers were less than 50. The demands of the consumers are still there, but COVID-19 is not allowing these people to actually execute their needs. So I think that social cultural conditions are influenced by the pandemic, and venues are also influenced. And we have to keep that in mind. This year we had a lot of outdoor events, weddings also. Rather than being hosted indoors, there were a lot of weddings that took place outdoors. Now, in the past, there were small weddings to save costs, but now the small weddings that are taking place outdoors is not to cut costs, but to make this event very special and to ease people's concerns about the current situation. Also, another characteristic that unique venues should pay attention to is, of course, number one, the unique style. And number two, the digital technologies that can be implemented. And number three is that they have to have a theme. Because nowadays, the customers, like I said, they want to be compensated for what they were not able to enjoy. And so there used to be a lot of parties. And people desire to take part in parties that they've never been to before. So the people with unique venues, well, we cannot just stand still and wait for the pandemic to go away, for the MICE industry to be vitalized again. So we have to think about new events that can take place. For example, the themed parties, the family events that can take place in this time and age. So it's the same thing as not standing still. And if you use the metaphor of a automobile, you cannot just wait until the automobile is heated because you have to go a long way. So you should not just give up. You have to come up with new creative ideas, and you have to think of ways to provide a unique experience to the customers. Once again, these are photos of a themed party, and in the case of unique venues, you can actually use the unique venue spaces in a different way each time. So you can see that it looks different every time. It's the same venue, it's the same space, but one looks like a zoo, one has a theme of Peter Pan, another has a theme of Christmas, and people are willing to pay to participate in these types of themed parties, which are unique. I think that those types of demands are still there. So even if the MICE industry is still not normalized, still we can utilize these opportunities. And once the MICE industry goes back on track, then we can further our activities. And we can cooperate with the stakeholders in the relevant industries. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much for keeping your given time. So we just heard about how unique venues can still win in the era of COVID-19. She mentioned about the difficulty of contracts, which leads to controversy sometimes. So that was a very impressive presentation about unique venues. She talked about the new strategies that are required. And I think that we saw a glimpse of hope through what Ms. Lee mentioned. Thank you very much. So we just heard from all four speakers. Once again, a big round of applause.
So we have heard from all four presenters. We started with Ms. MacPhie, who talked about the MICE industry future from the business event perspective. She talked about rebooting and refreshing so that we can position ourselves as a major business event destination. She also talked about the global task force to bring together various stakeholders, and that was impressive. Professor Jun-Hong talked about going back to the fundamentals. What is the role of the MICE industry? We will see changes in the post-COVID-19 era, but if we go back to the fundamentals, then we need to focus on the offline and the ripple effect. It's not just about concentrating on the event itself, but we need to think about the ripple effects, the creation of jobs, the creation of a boost in the local economy. And so the importance of becoming a content creator and becoming a platform for the local economy is important. Mr. Jun-Hong talked about meeting again in a new world at Songdo Convensia. Thank you very much for all of these efforts. Preparing for the digital MICE industry that is non-face-to-face will enable us to overcome unexpected situations like COVID-19. So it seems that Songdo Convensia is a great example of a well-prepared convention venue. We also heard from Ms. Kyung-jin, who talked about the unique venue. Well, I love this framework of conversion. And so, if we are to become convergent, we need three pillars. First is the function. We need a functional conversion, and Ms. Kyung-jin talked about outdoor events. And so the convergence of outdoor events and indoor events and unique venues and regular venues. And we also need to think about technology, as we have talked about yesterday. We need the convergence of technology, and we need the third type of convergence. We need the convergence of contents. This was mentioned by Professor Lee and Ms. Lee as well. So all of these three types of conventions must go hand in hand so that whether it be during COVID-19 or beyond, we can maintain the competitiveness of the MICE industry. Yesterday, I think we focused quite a bit on technology, but we also need to focus on contents and functional conversion. And so, having said that, I would like to address our panel with questions. So, Professor Jun-Hong, you talked about being a contents creator, talking about going back to the fundamentals. So when you think about the ripple effects of content creators or the methodology of content creators, what can you share with us? Well, I think this is something that we need to develop into the future. And as I have mentioned in my presentation, and as our moderator has also mentioned, we need to have in-depth professional knowledge and expertise. And people with such expertise need to be fostered. Well, we have event managers working in the MICE industry. But what are their differentiation point from those working perhaps in broadcasting? For example, we need to leverage what we have today already. For example, one of the most successful cases in the UK is to have a collection of MICE events under the same topic. So having a week of events with the same topic or a season of events under the same topic to create synergy effects within the pool of events held together. And so that is something that we can also look into in Korea. And as you're well aware, we always talk about MICE, but exhibitions and conferences are different. For example, there are different government agencies in charge of these events, and so it's difficult to collaborate, but I look forward to creation of new products through the collaboration of conferences and exhibitions, which I believe will satisfy more needs, and I believe we need creative solutions.
So, collaboration, you mentioned about this. I think that actually collaboration has gone backwards, it has decreased, but what do you think about this? So I think you're asking about how we should collaborate. No, I'm asking you about the current status. Yes, if you look at the current status, like I just said, the Ministry of Culture and Sports, the convention industry falls under this ministry, and also under the Ministry of Industry. Also, there are aspects of the convention industry falling under this agency. So we are actually governed by these two different agencies, and we have separate support programs that we have led by these two agencies. So I think that we need more collaboration among these two government agencies. And yes, thank you very much. Mr. Min?
You talked about Let's Meet in a New World, Songdo Convensia, and you talked about how these convention venues are changing from meet and share to connect and share. So for conventions, we need to have offline first, and it has to be expanded with technology. Well, for example, we are looking forward to vaccines being available perhaps in the second half of next year, which could lead to more offline events. How can Songdo Convensia utilize connect and share? And what would your strategies be in the post-COVID-19 era? Well, in the past, we converted from meet and share to connect and share. And so in the past, we were a convention center where people meet and share information. But we are dreaming to become a connect and share venue where people would connect to share their information through us. And in the middle of connect and share is contents. So it's connect and share contents. And as a venue for connecting contents, that's the role that we will continue to play. And I think there are limitations in sharing information on a physical venue, but if we're connecting with other participants online and connecting with other events internationally, then we can expand our events and expand the sharing. And so it's not about connect and share, but it's also about creating content to share, and that's a part of the equation. Thank you.
Yes, I mentioned at the beginning that it's safer here at Songdo Conventia, this convention center, than in the subways or buses, public transportation methods. So I think that this is something that we should promote. Now, Ms. Kyung-jin, you mentioned some very valid points. So you talked about what Floating Island is doing. It is a very large-scale, unique venue. And there are many small and mid-sized unique venues as well in Korea. There's a question raised through YouTube. So how should these small and mid-sized unique venues strategically respond to the current situation? Well, in general, unique venues are selected by customers who are different in character compared to the customers that select the general convention centers. It's not just about facility or price, but usually the customers who want something new, special cultural experience. These types of people select the unique venues. So I think that the businesses who have unique there are businesses who newly select unique venues, and the reason that they select these venues is because of these unique characteristics, but these unique characteristics have to be well promoted to attract these new businesses. So I have been in charge of the floating island for 6 years. And I always tell my staff, you have to be creators. So you cannot go for something that is just normal or regular or ordinary. That does not make your venue unique. And also for those who aspire to become new unique venues, you really have to understand the concept of these unique venues, and the local governments also have to share experiences of working with these unique venues. Yes, thank you very much. So you mentioned about the importance of education. Thank you. If I may ask you another question in terms of content development. Well, if you look at the trends of COVID-19, people are really interested about wellness and well-being. And also, they have strong loyalty towards the venues that can ensure that. So you talked about a floating island, but when it comes to wellness or well-being, do you have any contents and programs that you can introduce? Well, in terms of our convention function, well, we have a very high ceiling, and we don't have anything inside that space. So it was basically an empty space because we want to be able to transform it accordingly to the demands of the customers of each event. And so we can host exhibitions and conferences and gala dinners, but not only that, we can host yoga classes, for example. These are well-being events that are in trend these days. And also, we are well aware of the new demands and needs of the customers. So this year, what we did was, well, we had an 80-meter projector, but we have extended that further because there are some 3D mapping, AR or VR technologies that customers want to implement in their events. And so we had to also change. So we have done that for our projectors to enable such adoption of new technologies. And also the millennials, well, before them also, we had different generations, but the millennials, the Z generation, they have been using smartphones from very young, since they were very young, and they are accustomed to these new technologies. So I think that if we have the same venue for them every time, then it will no longer be of value. So I think that the venues have to serve as trendsetters in order for them to be competitive. Yes, thank you very much. So you mentioned about how the venues have to be trendsetters, and you have to analyze the trends and adjust yourselves accordingly. So this session, so I think that this is kind of like a hybrid session. We have many different topics that we're dealing with. But as a discussant, we have invited a representative from the Korea Mice Association, which is sometimes being criticized because of the difficult challenges that we are faced with. But I'm sure that the association has solutions to the challenges as well. So we have invited Secretary General Ha Hong-guk of the Korea Mice Association. I would like to ask questions to Mr. Ha as well. But first, why don't we greet him with a big round of applause? Yes, well, in fact, actually, the three speakers touched upon very important points about our mice industry, and I, well, work with the Korea Tourism Organization and the local tourism organizations and this convention center. And also, I have experience with the unique venues and the PCOs and the service providers. I have experience with them. I understand their concerns. And I think that the presentations really reflected well these concerns and the relevant challenges. So Dr. Incheon has a lot of experience in this field, but I think that overall, if you look at the mice industry, well, he made some valid points, and he also talked about the way forward for the mice industry, but also the role of the PCOs, how they have to take on a more proactive role as consultants and marketers, for example. And also he talks about the value of venues. So I have questions for our speakers, in fact. And the first question I would like to ask is that you mentioned about things that the PCOs are also thinking about as well. Now, for the PCOs to take on a more proactive role, I think that they have to make efforts as well. But if you look at the profit structure, it's really difficult for them to make that kind of a transformation, because if you look at the structure that we have, for example, well, this event, I'm sure that you know that the same PCO actually has been in charge of this event, and each year we are seeing further development of this event, because based on last year's experience, we can add on and improve the shortages that we experienced in the previous year. But sometimes when we have an audit of this event, other agencies might not agree and say, why do you use the same PCO over and over again? And so in particular, as we are having this hybrid event and we're using a more reduced space, well, the added value has gone down compared to when we used the entire offline space. So I think that there is the profit structure that makes it difficult for the PCOs to actually transform themselves and the industry to transform itself. And also, when it comes to international conferences, well, what we do is we count the number of participants to assess the success of this event. And it was mentioned before, but we really have to promote the conference industry so that we can promote and expand it into a business event industry. But what kind of institutional changes do we need for that? Yes, thank you very much.
Well, concerning the first question, I think we need to think about two parts. First, the first part that we need to consider is the issue of continuity, especially for government conferences. It is difficult for PCOs to repeatedly win the bid for the conference because the budget is set anew every year, and so you have to win the bid every year. And so I can relate to that. And the hosts can also relate to that as well. So from the government perspective and the local government perspective, we need to find new channels. And I believe that that is necessary. And in that process, there are many things that need to be supplemented. For example, how can we increase the number of participants? And how can we increase accountability? And I think the more important point is the second point. We sometimes are too focused on winning bids. So, for example, I continue to talk about creativity. I don't know if this is a good example, but the biggest difference between a PO and PCO is that PCOs actually do things in consignment, but for PEOs, they actually host events. And that's actually the difference in the competitiveness. After COVID-19, PEOs will recover very quickly because it's their business. And so they do have their countermeasures and marketing methods for the post-COVID-19 era, and so they're playing a very active role. But PCOs, they are focused on the fact that they are on consignment, and so they don't have ownership of that conference. So that is why I have subtitled my presentation as going back to the basics, because I think we need to use this as an opportunity to have ownership. So invest their assets and just find people to collaborate with and create conferences themselves. That really is the direction for survival in the future. This is not something that I created alone, but these thoughts are being shared by many countries around the world. And that's how businesses are being expanded. But I think the business in Korea is a bit distorted. And so I believe that this would be a good opportunity to go back to the basics and use creativity to create our own conferences on the part of PCOs. Well, PEOs in that process invest their efforts, their manpower, and their resources. And so I think PCOs should move in that direction as well. Concerning the word mice, the word mice brings together 4 categories of industries, and so people are thinking about expanding the concept of mice. For, as you're well aware, in Singapore and in the UK, the word that is used is business events. Well, with Professor Kim, we had lunch and we talked about the word mice. And Professor Kim mentioned business event is a good word, but it seems that it's very difficult to define the boundaries of business events. And so we need to define the boundaries of business events as we convert to the word business events instead of mice. But the word itself is not as important as the industry itself. We need to continue and redefine our industry. Thank you very much.
So like you said, we have to go to the basics. And I think that there are some institutional aspects that we have to look into, like you said. And what is most important, I think, is that we need pan-governmental efforts made. So I think that there were some concerns already before the COVID-19, but with COVID-19, I think that more accelerated efforts will be made by the relevant stakeholders. And now, Mr. Min.
Songdo Convensia, I can see, has great disease control measures, and we have never had second-hand infections. And we always talk about Songdo Convensia as a model case. But as you have mentioned, when we have mice events, the participants at mice events are people that can be tracked and people who have higher standards of disease control. And so it's not just a gathering, it's an actual industrial activity. Just like we don't lock down companies and factories, and just like we don't lock down department stores, we shouldn't lock down conventions or exhibitions. We continue to think of conventions and exhibitions as gatherings, and so that's why we limit the number of participants to 100, for example. But we can see that we have great disease control measures at Songdo Convensia, and you have great smart mice technologies. So, in the future, whether we see the end of COVID-19 soon or later, what would be some changes in your targets For example, rather than the events and conventions that you had before, maybe you should have more events that are more hands-on. So what's your direction for the future? And you can see that many of the events are being downsized. So how will you will be utilizing this large area at Songdo Convensia? And maybe we can host all of the unique events in the Songdo area into Songdo Convensia. For example, if you can have a gathering of more than 100 people, then maybe you can have 1,000 people gathered in groups of 100 across Songdo, with Songdo Convensia being the host of all of these events together. So maybe we can become the host of the unique event venues. Thank you very much for your great questions. Well, we are trying to promote our disease control activities, and we continue to say that we are safer than subways. But sometimes that feels quite ironic as we even say it. Are we safer than department stores? Are we safer than outlet malls? Well, truly, it is quite safe. As I have mentioned before, you check your temperature on the way in, and you also check the temperature on your way inside the hall, and we put on masks, we put on gloves, and we sanitize our hands, and we limit the number of people to 1 per every 4 square meters. And so I don't think we could have a spread of the disease inside the convention center. And that's also true for other convention centers across the country as well. As you have mentioned, we feel it's quite unfortunate that we are being limited. Well, 1 person per every 4 square meter is the limitation currently. It's not less than 100 people. We can actually have exhibitions if the limitation is every 1 person per 4 square meters rather than limiting it to just a flat 100 people per gathering. Well, the Songdo Conventia boasts high-tech facilities and eco-friendly facilities. So that is our positioning. Concerning collaboration with unique venues, well, I think these days, many people are not hosting their conferences at convention centers these days. And so it seems that in the past, we used to have convention centers hosting meetings, and then unique venues would host the dinner. But now the trend is that people would have their meetings and their dinners at the unique venues. And so we actually look forward to collaboration with unique venues. But at the same time, we need to find our own uniqueness as a convention center. And Professor Lee talked about the Boston Center, and converging with art could be another way for Songdo Conventia to find our own uniqueness. That gave us a lot of food for thought. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. There are a lot of people who do not know a lot about the MICE industry asking about the convention centers. And we should not just look at the convention center from a cost perspective. We have to look at the convention center as a SOC. And among the many different SOC businesses, I think that convention centers are the most successful. So I think that, as it was mentioned by Dr. Incheon, the function and the role of the convention centers are very important. So convention centers should play a central role in the local communities and should be linked with the local societies. So I know that the convention centers have done a lot, but I do hope that you can do even more so that you can work with the MICE businesses and enjoy greater growth and progress. Now, Floating Island indeed is a unique venue, and I know that starting from last year that the Korea Tourism Organization has been selecting the unique venues, including Floating Island. But once the venues have been selected as unique venues, and as the importance of unique venues have been on the rise, these venues have to focus more on their functions and what they have to offer, because just because you have a unique facility doesn't make you automatically a unique venue. Unique venues have to provide great accessibility, and also the overall surrounding infrastructure has to support the unique venues as well. But I think that currently the unique venues do not have such great accessibility or great infrastructure that supports them yet. So in the past, actually, if there was a government guideline, for example, the businesses would just follow the guidelines. And also, that was the same for the public officials as well. But now I think that there is a leisure of choice, and you can select the direction that you want. And also, I think that there are many different players in this business that can promote collaboration. So having said that, I would like to ask you, what are some of the cooperation or some of the support that you would like to receive, for example, from the government or the local governments? Well, first of all, I think that the unique venues are quite different from the PCOs or the PEOs, for example. The unique venues do not compete amongst each other because each venue is unique and the customers choose the venues according to their desires, their needs, or taste. So I think that each unique venue should have a story for marketing. If you don't have a story, the customers are not interested in your unique venue. And so I think that what we need is for the unique venues to work together amongst themselves, exchange information. If you provide that kind of opportunity or provide that kind of venue for communication, then that would actually help unique venues to further grow together. Yes, you just talked about the importance of storytelling. And also, at our Korea MICE Association, we have been thinking about support plans to promote the unique venues, and not just incentives, but also we are thinking about various measures to promote the unique venues as destinations, and I will keep in mind what you just said. And I understand that the travel company Yonghae had actually launched programs for next year travel, and their server went down. So this means that there is a lot of demand for travel. We don't know when this situation, the COVID-19 situation, will end, but I think that we are in a process right now. We have a direction that we want to go towards, but at the same time, we know that we need resilience throughout this process, and that is why probably that we are gathered together to engage in this discussion. And like I said, I think that there are a lot of things, and like we said, there are a lot of things that we have to focus on. Now, I would like to pass on the microphone once again to the moderator. Yes, thank you very much. We just heard from Secretary General Ha, and he said that right now the conditions for the consumers are not that good. They are in a situation where they can have only limited choice at this moment, and people talk about a V-shaped economic recovery, probably at the second half of this year at the earliest. But I do have a question for Mr. Ha. We heard from Ms. MacPhie from Britain and Visit Britain and Visit England, and she talked about how they're trying to reboot and refresh and how a task force was created. Now, at the Korea Mice Association, is there a public-private partnership that is currently under discussion that you're preparing for? Well, last week we had a number of meetings, and I think that it was mentioned by our president, but when it comes to the exhibitions and the events, there are separate teams, but we had the teams get together to come up with a forward-looking strategy, and so we talked about what we should do for to prepare for the post-COVID-19 era, and also then how should the local entities prepare for the future. We talked about that as well. We make a lot of requests to the government because we are under a very difficult situation. I understand that the government is faced with many challenges as well, but I think it is time to break down the barriers, the silos, and we have to collaborate among the different stakeholders at this moment. So after the COVID-19 breakout, we have heard that we have to have all of the stakeholders of the mice industry gather together, engage in a discussion. We have people from the different societies related to the mice industry, and we need communication amongst everyone, the industry and the academia, and all of the different stakeholders as well. So I think close communication is important, and also we have to look into not only the large picture but also the details as well. And now we are at a time when we're pursuing digitalization because of COVID-19. Not only tourism, but also in the mice industry, there are not a lot of digital experts. So the mice businesses, well, the small businesses, they do have a specialized design team. With the small mice companies, they are outsourcing the design work. So we need digital transformation, and we need a specialized IT team, just like there is a specialized design team. Of course, luckily, we are receiving job creation support from the government. We actually posted a job opening, and around 400 people have applied. And so about 30 people can be hired by a company, and 6 months of support, financial support for one person will be provided by the government. So the service providers, the PCOs, and the convention businesses and the exhibition businesses are actually able to receive this kind of support. We will be making another notice next year as well. Now, like you said, up till now, the association has not been working closely with the Korea Tourism Organization, for example, but I think now we are understanding the need for collaboration, and we're trying to go in that direction. And there's a lot of cost associated with establishing digital systems. So then how are we going to push towards digitalization of our systems? How are we going to push towards digital transformation? Should we receive professional consultation? And for that, then, we would need budget. So we're thinking about how we are going to receive the budget for that. And we're thinking of a financial support of 3 million won max. We are having these types of discussions at this moment. And so we're thinking of working on this. We have held meetings with the different businesses, with the different sectors within the mice industry. So we do have some IT specialists right now that we have secured, but not only the IT specialists, also I think that each business probably have some specialists that they prefer, and perhaps they should be given the leisure to select the experts that they want to work with. So we are looking at a plan where the businesses can receive support, but at the same time they can select the specialists that they want to work with. So this would include the exhibition sector as well. And also, Safe tourism, well, WHO, in relation to this, has been talking about this. There's, for example, an alarm that can go off when people are standing close by, for example, 15 minutes, distance of 2 meters. So I think that these types of measures might help. And of course, we have more room for improvement, but we will continue to make efforts to improve the current situation.
Well, today's topic is the resilience of mice. I think the audience may feel like they don't have a clear-cut answer. So could you make a statement on resilience of the mice industry? Well, I would like to add to the statement by Mr. Ha. The Korea Tourism Organization has introduced new structures for collaboration, to the best of my knowledge. The Korea Mice Association, the Korea Mice Tourism Society, and the Korea PCO Association, I understand, is to collaborate, and they will be provided a support from the Korea Tourism Organization. We had a ceremony to strive for coexistence. And also, we are looking for practical ways of collaboration, to the best of my knowledge. We look forward to some tangible plans in the near future. Mr. Min? Well, concerning cooperation within Incheon, we have the Incheon Mice Alliance, centered around the Incheon Mice Bureau. And through consultation, we are looking at how to overcome the COVID situation through collaboration. As I have mentioned in my presentation, we would like to try and provide any support possible so that we can contribute to the maintenance of the mice industry during these difficult times. There are catering companies and parking companies that are a part of Songdo Convensia, and we are providing them with some benefits so that they can get through the difficult times. During the second half of this year, we have not provided any discounts, but we believe that they will be necessary in the future additionally. So we are in the process of proposing such benefits to the central government and the local government.
I already mentioned this, but the mice industry, because of COVID-19, is evolving, not disappearing. And so we actually were hit by COVID-19 when we were not prepared. And because of that, a lot of people are feeling insecure. But there is still demand, and today we're having this hybrid event through online and offline channels. In the post-COVID-19 era, I think that we will be able to hold virtual meetings, and we will apply various meeting technologies. And I think that these types of events will be more impactful in the future. I think that the mice industry will be able to grow further because of these changes, and these changes will help incubate the mice industry for further growth.
Thank you very much for joining us across a long session to listen to our 4 presentations, followed by discussions and Q&A. All industries are going through difficulties, but they say that risks or opportunities, some shares in the stock market have risen by tenfold. So there are opportunities amidst difficulties. As I mentioned before, we obviously know the importance of technology triggered by the 4th Industrial Revolution, but we need to see technology convergence along with functional convergence. And so, as Ms. Kyung-jin has mentioned, through COVID-19, we look forward to boosting the competitiveness of the MICE industry triggered by COVID-19. A big round of applause for our panelists, please. This brings us to the end of session 3 on the resilience and cooperation of the MICE industry. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have concluded session 3 on the resilience and cooperation of the MICE industry to overcome COVID-19. We have taken a look at the vision and the future of the MICE industry yesterday and today. Through digital transformation, we look forward to a more developed MICE industry in the future. Thanks to the people who continue to innovate and challenge themselves, I believe that the MICE industry has indeed a bright future. All of the videos of the conferences are available via our website. We look forward to your participation and interest. We look forward to your interest for Korea MICE Expo. This brings us to the end of the conference. Thank you very much for your participation throughout the last 2 days, both offline and online. Thank you and goodbye.